All wings report in.
Red 10 standing by.
Red 7 standing by.
Red 3 standing by.
Red 6 standing by.
Red 9 standing by.
Red 2 standing by.
Red 11 standing by.
Red 5 standing by.
I have you now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 585 Squadron podcast. I am Nate.
Hi, I'm
Hey,
Nick,
everyone.
Imperial Flyer.
Hey everyone, this is Pat.
We are here today to give you all kinds of fun stuff and talk about Star Wars. What game are we playing? X-Wing, right? Yeah, X-Wing. Sure.
I think it's Imperial Assault actually.
Guys, I'm doing a great job. I'm just gonna keep doing this. So we had quite a good. We do this bi-weekly, and we like to tell people about what we've been doing X-Wing wise over the last 2 weeks. And a lot has happened over the last 2 weeks, and there's been a lot of upsets. So we have a lot to talk about, and I will just start us off by saying that we all flew something. So who wants to talk about what they flew first in our fancy first segment of What Are We Flying?
I think Nick should go for Kylo Ren because he's been so excited for so long about this card.
Who's Kylo Ren? I don't know what you're talking about. Wave 10's not a thing. Go ahead, Nick. Make us cry.
Guys, let me tell you about Kylo Ren and how you all should join the dark side.
Our Lord and Savior, Kylo Ren.
He may be a punk-ass bitch, but he's my punk-ass bitch. And I am a huge fan of the concept of leafing through crit cards and handing you one of 4, I believe, special crit cards. I'm also a big fan of passive things, and with this Wave 10, now that Wave 10 is legal for the regionals, I'm super excited to be flying one of many, many things. The Striker was out. We talked about that last time. But Kylo Ren's ability just to be like, you know what? It'd be best if you just don't fire your 7 attack dice thing at me next turn, and Kylo Ren makes that possible. Kylo for president.
So, why don't you go over exactly what your build is with what you've been flying? Because there's obviously Kylo Ren, but there's a crew card and a ship card. So, tell the plebes. Tell them what you've been doing.
Sir, there's also a ship title card. So there's 3 Kylo Rens. I am most excited about free shit. That's the name of the game, and what I'm flying is now... Pat actually introduced me to a list that I'm a big fan of. It has Kylo Ren on the Epsilon, meaning you shoot me, if I shoot you back, I'm going to hit you hard. So I'm going to give you either Blinded Pilot or a crit card that says that you shoot and move. You have a pilot skill 0, so that would hurt most lists.
So Kylo Ren, his effect is when you get shot, you hand that person the I'll Show You the Dark Side card, which lets you choose a pilot crit, hand it or add it to that, and then once the ship that has the I'll Show You the Dark Side receives a crit damage, not necessarily a crit card, but crit damage that's unblocked, the crit card goes on their face up, and triggers, and that happens every time you shoot at Kylo Ren, sort of. We'll go over that later.
Yes.
And what's the rest of your build?
So it's Kylo Ren on the Epsilon with fire control system, because what good is rolling 6 dice if you can't target lock them? Rebel Captive, it's another go ahead and shoot me. I'll give you a stress if you fire at me. And it says immediately, so that could interrupt things like either TLT, second shot, whatever it has to be.
Expertise hates Rebel Captive.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
It is the unexpertise. So Rebel Captive, the fire control system. What else? I also have Squad Leader. I'm, like I said last time, I'm a big fan of Squad Leader. It doesn't necessarily go off that often. It says that when I'm firing at you, if other targets have you within their arc, and I think those targets have to be range 1 to 2, as long as they have you in arc at range 1 to 3, you can remove a evade token to add a attack die. Adding an attack die to a target locked roll is amazing, and I think Pat might talk about that with Finn and his Rebel build, but the whole concept is I'm going to fire lots of dice at you, up to 7, actually, if you get within range 1, and both defenders can get their evades off, and I'm going to reroll them. Also, I have Agent Callus. Agent Callus allows me to pick one opponent, one ship, small or large, and basically offense and defense make a focus roll into an evade or a hit, depending on offense or defense. So that is a little bit of a boost. I basically have one big target, being Kylo Ren flying the Epsilon, and 2 small targets. Didn't know this could happen, but the lowest of the low defenders with the -2 title on them to get that free evade will both fit in a 100-point build. So all those the defenders and the Epsilon together kind of comes together, and like I've been saying, free shit. I fire at you, I get a target lock. You fire at me, you get a stress. You fire at me, you get a card. My defenders just move; they get evade tokens. So we can talk about this a little more. But I flew just recently against Nate. I don't think I didn't. It was constant bump. It was stress. It was all over these debris, and I got free shit every single turn. So, big fan of the feeling of getting free shit. I just gotta fly it right and train my skills before Saturday, and I think I'll be happy with that build.
For those of you who don't know, Saturday is our local regionals, and we've kind of been training for that. So a lot of the stuff that we've been running have been very like meta-y, I want to win, gonna kick some ass kind of builds, rather than like Catharu or other stupid builds like that, which are fun and have their place, but we're trying to be good. We're trying to show that we're good, even though we fly casual. And
yeah, I think, Nick, honestly, your list with Kylo, a lot of people are focusing on the blinded pilot aspect of it, but with your list with the PS1 defenders, the crit that makes someone pilot skill 0 is amazing, because if you give someone pilot skill 0, say that 5 times fast, if you give them that crit and then Kylo dies, your PS1 defenders still get to shoot first. You know what I mean? They get to move last, so they can decide whether to barrel roll. They'll get that free evade. You'll have a focus or a target lock, which you can use offensively if you want to first push through damage. So in this particular build, I honestly think the pilot skill 0 crit is way better than the blinded pilot one where you can't shoot. Which is, I think most people are focusing on the idea of not making their opponent shoot for a turn, right? And especially and we'll get to my list, where it's a 2-ship low agility rebel build, and that is Kylo Ren is kryptonite for me, because if one of my ships is not firing, that's just bad news bears, and it's so easy to put a crit through. It's almost impossible to miss if you get a crit. So
yeah, right. And like flying against, like we mentioned earlier, that I flew against this list with a weird list that I don't want to talk about. It had a lot of jump masters, quad jumpers. I may have wasted my money, but we'll talk about that later. The flying against that, you flew specifically, you had your defenders behind Kylo Ren, and you would use your 3 maneuvers or higher in order to bump into the back of Kylo Ren, just so they're there, That made me scared to death of Kylo Ren. My original plan was just take out the defenders and then just circle back, but knowing that was just impending, and if I got within range 1 within Kylo without bumping, oh god, 7 dice, it's going to happen. Oh, and then the defenders can use the fire at it too. So, it's scary.
Yeah, that was actually, it's funny, the tugboats were kind of the undoing of Kylo Ren, simply because large ship against small ship, bumping the little ship. Now all of a sudden, I think I took 4 turns trying to just turn westbound to kind of open my target, and unfortunately that did not work for the entire game.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a problem. You really, in the first pass with Kylo, you really need to bring Kylo Ren and both of the defenders into the battle and just murder something before, and because you're going to spend the middle of the game turning Kylo Ren around, essentially.
Oh, the problems of big boss ships. Cool. And that's what you're going to be bringing to regionals, right, Nick?
Yep, I'm going to be bringing that to regionals. Look really forward to it. And the funny part is, not to digress here, but you did say, what crits really matter with Kylo Ren, because now it's a new kind of facet of the game. And looking through the pilot crits that you could receive, pending your opponent doesn't have determination, which would just make Kylo cry. The idea that you can't execute straight maneuvers is kind of underrated, But one ship that I know, if I fly up against a defender without the twin ion engine, they can't de-stress. Their only greens are forward. So if they get that crit, in theory, they could just not de-stress or take actions the entire rest of the game.
Oh my god.
So that's one. And the flip side, which I would have loved, and I probably should have put this on, is if you had a crit that if we bump, you take 1 damage, I would have been full bore aiming at you the entire game if I looked at that crit and probably picked that rather than the haphazardly just being like, yeah, don't fire next turn, which didn't make a difference at all in the gameplay.
Yeah, and you pounded on that jump or quad jumper, like just kept bumping into him.
Yep, every turn, I think 5 turns in a row, I couldn't evade him without going off the edge of the board.
Oh, that was great.
Yep.
Cool. Well, Pat, you mentioned you also had a build that you've been running recently that is you like?
I liked it. I liked it a little bit before Kylo Ren happened. So, just to give a little bit of background, on the Facebook page for the store, it was announced that Wave 10, or the rest of Wave 10, not the Rogue One ships, but the other 3, would not be legal for the tournament, which I was expecting anyways, because the idea of something being released and then you can play it almost immediately.
No time to practice. It's kind of cheap.
Exactly, and I knew Kylo Ren would be kryptonite against my list. I knew as soon as it was released, the system open, I wouldn't be able to play my list there, because if Kylo Ren is a hit, and I think lots of people will want to fly him, it was just going to do too much damage to my list, Dengaroo, any 2-ship lists where you need them to pack a big punch, but they're not necessarily defensive powerhouses. That was going to be an issue for me. So I've been running the same build as the last podcast. It's the Rey in the Millennium Falcon, and then the Lothal Rebel in the Ghost. Rey has expertise and Finn, and then all of the 3-bank turnaround shenanigans as well. And then the Ghost is just an Auto Blaster, Fire Control System Hera Ghost. So I knew already that Palp Defenders was a matchup that I didn't like that much, just because there's not a lot of repositioning, and by a lot I mean I have 0. I don't have engine upgrade on any of the ships.
I mean, you got your 5K, right?
I've got the 5K, but and it's designed to do that, right? I think, Nate, I played against you, and what, I have 6 or 7 stress on that Ghost by the end.
Yeah.
Because I just kept K-turning through the same debris over and over again. So
NBD.
It's not really designed to move all over the board after with repositioning ability, and that really hurts it against things like defenders already. But I just think that Kylo has done it in. So we've got 5 days until the regional, and I'm just debating in my head whether I should stick with this list as something I know how to fly and I'm pretty good at. And I ran in a recent tournament, at the store, or do I pick something new that I haven't really practiced? And, I have to apologize on air to Nate and Nick, because I've just been constantly sending them builds. What do you guys think of this? What do you guys think of this?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet. I'm going to practice maybe a different list tonight, and if it comes to me naturally that I can fly it fairly well, I think I'm going to dump the Rey Ghost build, because I just don't like the Kylo Ren matchup at all.
So what are you flying, Pat?
What, the new list or the Rey Ghost?
The new list.
Okay, so the new list is somewhat modified. I saw it on a stream, Gold Squadron podcast. They're out of Chicago. They had a stream of one of their regionals recently.
Nobody else podcasts X-Wing. What are you talking about?
That's true. Just does. Don't go look up their podcast right now, because it's excellent.
No, they're amazing.
Yeah, they're really cool, and like all of the content they do in their Patreon is amazing as well. They're fantastic. But so they covered the regionals, and one of the lists that actually snuck into the top 16, I think it was 15th, was a Rebel build with 2 TLT Y-Wings, the Hawk, which makes you a pilot skill 12. Can't remember the name of it. And then he had 2 Bandit Squadron Z95s, and so basically those are the blockers, and then the 3 TLTs go nuts. One of them being a PS12 Y-wing, so they shoot first. So I liked the idea of that list. I didn't like having 2 bandits. Obviously, blocking when you have 2 of them flying in and making a mess of things is easier, but what I changed is I took off the crew on the Hawk, which I believe was Recon Specialist on his list, and I used those extra points to grab... I upgraded one of the bandits to the new Rebel TIE Fighter, which is Captain Rex. And so I know a lot of people are talking about Ahsoka for the Rebel TIE. I mean, she's good, but I just don't think she's going to be the standout because you have to put points into her. And once she does, get rid of that captured TIE, she's going to die as easy as any other TIE fighter. But Captain Rex is something that I've been trying to make work in certain lists. And so what I did is I upgraded one of the Bandit Squadron pilots to Rex with the intention of making him a pilot skill 12 with the Hawk. So especially if I come up against a 2-ship list, let's say I come up against Dengaroo, the point is make Rex, hopefully firing at range 3 with an evade token or a focus token. Make him fire first, shoot at Dengar, and then apply that condition right away. Normally, he's a pilot skill 4.
That's the suppressing fire condition?
Suppressing fire, yes. So what that does is it reduces the opponent's attack dice by 1 if they're shooting at anyone but Captain Rex.
Nice.
So you hand that out at pilot skill 12, which is fantastic because at pilot skill 4, you're going last in the round. So if you're fighting Dengaroo and you fire, that you're not getting the effect of that condition card until the next round. And if Captain Rex dies during the initial round, that's it. You just don't get to use that condition. It goes away. So making him pilot skill 12 for the initial attacks, I thought was a really great idea. Even if it's only once or twice a game before Captain Rex gets killed, he essentially has a Biggs effect because if you shoot at anyone but him, you're rolling. That 12-point title that you put on Dengar is worth 0. It's worth nothing. And so he's meant to be sort of a quasi-Biggs in that way and allow the other 3 TLTs just to kind of do their thing. So this is the list I've been thinking about. I haven't run it at all. I've just been thinking about how I would fly it. And so, Nate, I think we're going to be playing after the podcast tonight. This is probably something I'll give a try against one of your lists and see if it works, see if it can suit my flying style. If not, I'm probably going to stick to something I know for the regionals, and even if it loses, at least I flew it well while I lost.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat where I want to fly something new, but I'm practiced in something else. So I don't really want to mess it up, especially right before regionals. Yeah.
I think Kylo will have less of effect on your list, though. If you're talking about the original, getting crits through on Fen will be difficult. And really, Manaru, if you want to crit Manaru, that's fine. But does it really matter?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
No, so I mean, with your Mind Link list, when you had Fen, you had Talonbrain Cobra, and you had Manaru all Mind Linked. Manaru doesn't really care about those crits going through. Fen, it's exceptionally difficult to get those crits through.
Yeah.
And then Talonbrain Cobra is kind of the weak link there, but it was already the weak link in the list. Every time I've flown against that list, I've gone for Cobra first just to get him out of the way. So I don't think Kylo affects your list as much as it does some other lists, especially like the big, 2-ship, large base lists.
Yeah, actually, that's a good time for me to go into my list so I can flesh it out a little bit. My list that I'm going to be bringing, the one that he's talking about, Fen Rao and Manaru have been kind of like a thing that people have been doing. There's a nice, neat little trick where you Atani Mind Link both of them. One of Manaru takes a focus, hands it off to Fenrau. Excuse me, and that will give him 2 focus for his combat round, and Fenrau can take like an action. So that's awesome. I love that combo. Also, the Talonbane Cobra is like my favorite ship. So it's Fenrau, Talonbane Cobra, and Manaru is my list. Fenrau, Auto Thrusters, Concordant Down Protector, of course, and a Tiny Mind Link. Talonbane Cobra, Vectored Thrusters, and a Tiny Mind Link. Oh, I love Vectored Thrusters. And Manaru with a Tiny Mind Link, the K4 Security Droid, Unhinged Astromech, and Feedback Array. What I really like about this list is it gives Manaru options. I've played him differently on different games, and it always trips up my opponent. Because of the Unhinged Astromech, all of my 3s are green, so the K4 Security Droid is going to proc if I move 3 anywhere. With Feedback Array, I can fly him right up close, and I can either get within range 1 for a 3-shot, or I can Feedback Array if I really need to wipe something off the board. He's got options, and because I can always use my action to focus to hand it off, or be just the focus bitch of the group so everyone else has it. And then the K4 security drone, I have regularly in games ended up with too many target locks on my guys that just don't get used because I'm getting them faster than I'm actually using them. The Talonbane Cobra is the weak link of the list by far. He's only good either at range 3, where he gets his 4 dice defense because double the combat bonus, or range 1, not facing my opponent because he's got 5 dice. If he's facing your opponent and my opponent, if they're like face to face in each other's arc, he's going to get destroyed because he doesn't have a lot of defense. He's got 2 defense dice and 5 health. He's just, I don't know, he goes down quick, even with the Atani Mind Link and all that, which is why I put Vector Thrusters on him. I always use boost with him, but he's fast enough that I always tended to overshoot my opponent. So Vector Thrusters really gets me to wedge my way in where I need to and give me a little extra distance or back me out. Fenrau is just Fenrau. Like, you can't undo Fenrau. He's what everyone runs. Auto Thrusters, Concordant Dawn Protector, and Atani Mind Link. He's more defensive and more tanky at range 1 than he is at range 3, which is insane. And then range 2 is just his weak spot. He's got natively boost and barrel roll, so he's as dodgy as I need him to be as long as Manaru keeps taking that focus action, which is what I love about the list. They're Fenrau and Talonbane Cobra. The reason I went with Talonbane Cobra over the other Protectorate Starfighters is because of that pilot skill 9. Being able to fire first is huge on this list. It's almost completely mandatory. The list is also 97 points, so I'm going for that bid. And there's been so many times where I'm in a game and I'll have other PS9s and they'll have like 98 or 99 points to go for that bid, but that 97 just trumps them. And I love it. And I need to fire first because ideally I can get 12 dice coming at a target in a turn in 3 shots, and that's pretty scary. Wipe out the most threatening thing I'm up against and then just run. Because that's kind of what this list does.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. The 2 pilot skill 9s, if they both get in range 1, before anyone else fires, that's 10 red dice. I mean, you could one-shot a ship. You know what I mean? With that amount of dice.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that note, I also wanted to move us along into... I'm actually just going to talk about meta talk next. I'd like to skip Salty section, and we'll come back to it in a minute. But that list is, and what Pat was talking about too, I went to my first tournament, and Pat went to another tournament with us last week, and it was really fun. Like, this was my first tournament experience. I brought that list, and I loved it. And I faced off against Palp Defenders, a weird ghost list that was just a ghost and a Biggs, and those were my only 2 games because I had to bail early. But it was an amazing experience being in a tournament scene. One of the biggest things I've always kind of run into is my hands can kind of shake and I'll like bump the ships and I just feel like shit when it looks like I'm cheating when I'm not, and I'm trying to be fair and I'm just being awful. And like, I really didn't want to do that in front of a bunch of new people that, the X-Wing community is really good and everyone's super nice, but I don't want to piss anyone off. So yeah, I was really proud of the fact that I did well in that aspect. And I went 2-0, but I didn't play my third round. But it was fun. Everyone was super nice. It was great. First time really getting out in the X-Wing community. So it was cool.
Yeah, I really like the people there. They're just all around nice people. And I know everyone says that, but it really is true. Honestly, I was introduced to things like, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic when I was in high school, and just like some of the people in those groups, I was like, you know what, I'm good. But I really do think we've got a good group of people there, and we get some people come up from Buffalo every now and then as well. So I know they've got a good community over there as well. I also played in that tournament, and I also went 2-0 for my first two games. And Nate, I'm fairly certain if you had stayed, we would have played each other for the crown. As it is, I played someone else in my third game. I played a very interesting Imperial list, which was it was Whisper, and he had Pure Sabak, the TIE Striker, with Swarm Leader, and then he had two TIEs. One was a regular Wave 1 TIE, and the other one was a TIE FO. And essentially, his plan was he has Whisper on one side, he has Pure Sabak on the other, with the two TIEs providing him the evades to kind of roll 6 or 7 dice there the first round. So that was a scary list to go up against. And I gotta say, I came so close to winning that. I look back on it and I lost because after I got Whisper down to one life, that's all that was left on the board, I flew horribly. I don't know what happened. Maybe I just ran out of mental energy, but I really thought all I had to do was really shoot once, and him to get a bad roll, and it was over. And I think my Millennium Falcon was the ship I had left, and it had nine life maybe to his 1. And I lost that last game, which was heartbreaking, but it was a great game. It was really, really fun and creative list to play against. But I ended up coming, I think, 6th or 7th with a 2-1 record. So I think this is maybe the second time I've gone 2-0, and then the third game I play a really competitive game, really close, but end up losing it. So one of these times I'm gonna take home the number 1 spot.
I think you distinctively said that you were not gonna whine and bitch and moan about losing that game to the One Life Whisper, but just put it out there.
I had to say it. I mean, it was an amazing game. Like I basically slammed into range 1 with Burnout Slam, and then he was able to just barrel roll in arc. And get that last shot at me and rolled 5 hits. I blanked out, and then that was my last 5 life. So that was really a huge mistake. I should have run away and then jousted in the clear away from asteroids. But no, it was a really I liked the list, and it was really inventive, and there's lots of people at Millennium that have this like that, where it's, oh, I've never thought about that one. Now I get to play this for the first time and kind of discover what the list can do.
Yeah, I know our local regionals or our local scene for all kinds of other games, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic, Force of Will, etc. We have a tendency to break the meta in the sense of, like, say the meta was Palp Defenders, people would be like, I'm going to run not that. I can't give a good example, but like almost Palp Defenders or weird offshoots. I don't know. It's just something with our local scene.
Gotcha. You'd run Palp Defenders, but with no titles.
Right. Or Palp Defenders with no Palp.
Why are you picking on Imperials?
I mean, because they're useless, so,
Oh. Well, you guys were talking about your tournament experience. And I got to admit, even though I got a big boost in Wave 10, I'm a little intimidated. This is my very first tournament. Cut my teeth losing my pop my cherry here and going to be thrown to the wolves. So I don't know how well I'll do, but we'll see.
Going right into regionals from not having to do tournament. That's going to be intense.
Yep.
Yup. So yeah, we're prepared for meta, and it's going to be interesting. That's what we're doing with regionals. But with regionals and tournaments and all these good feelings also come very bad feelings and sadness and saltiness. So who wants to talk about what they're salty about?
Patrick.
So I guess I've got some salt, and it's with FFG and the reason that the Wave 10 is allowed in is because our regional is not considered a premier event, and from what I understand, it used to be, but it's not anymore. So for me as a player, when I'm going to a regional, I want to practice. And obviously, I know that Wave 10 has been coming out for a while, so you get to theory craft that. But I don't play on Vassal or anything, so I don't have. I don't go online and play with the ships, on the board before they're released. I haven't even flown my Rebel TIE fighter yet. So to have 5 days from now those ships pop up in a regional is really irritating, because like I said previously, the list that I was planning on bringing, if Kylo Ren shows up, and honestly I think you'll see a lot of Kylo Ren. I don't think you'll see a lot of the Upsilon shuttles, although you'll see some of those, but I really think you'll see a lot of Decimators with the Kylo Ren crew on, especially Rear Admiral Shirnu, who can turn a focus into the crit at range 1 to 2. I mean, that's an amazing combination right there, and I think you'll see a lot of versions of that ship along with like a Pocket Ace, Carner Jax or Inquisitor, a Defender, something like that. And so, now I have to risk, do I bring my original list, which I practiced, and if I run into these things, then it's kryptonite, or is it do I run a new list and maybe stand a chance, build against Kylo? So it's hard to tell what the meta is going to be and actually practice for that. And on one side of things, it is very it lends a little bit of excitement to it, as you don't know what's going to happen. You'll see on the day. But on another side of things, if you have a list that's going to be hard countered now, then that can be kind of frustrating.
I heard another podcast talking. I forget which one it was. Might have been Minoc's podcast. But they were saying like this is very much a game of rock paper scissors. But with every wave and everything, the rock gets heavier, the paper gets thicker, and the scissors get sharper. And it's so true, because like determination was never a thing that anyone would fly unless they wanted to be silly and weird. And then Kylo Ren came out, and now it's like, hey, look at that card now. Look at that card that everyone wants to run because it's only meant to counter Kylo.
Right, exactly. And I don't know the interaction between Kylo Ren and Chewie, because the old Chewbacca on the Millennium Falcon can just take crits and turn them face down. But I don't know whether he's being dealt that crit or assigned it. So I'll have to look up the interaction of that. But, before we started playing, there was lists like Chewbacca in the Millennium Falcon, and then Lebo in the Dash Render ship, the Outrider, and he would have determination on him, so he can choose his pilot abilities. He can pick up multiple crits and then choose which one to assign himself.
Yeah.
So he'd assign himself the pilot one and immediately just get rid of it. And so you could see a list like that maybe coming back if Kylo Ren kind of explodes and is kind of like the new hotness, kind of like until the last 6 months or so since Imperial Veterans has come out. Really, a lot of lists are focused on what beats defenders, right? You're seeing a lot of K-wing bombers. You know what I mean? You're seeing a lot of mine link lists. So things that can push through defenders' defenses, whether they be bombs, automatic damage like Auto Blaster, things like that. And so, if Kylo Ren becomes a really big part of the meta, then I think you'll see maybe like people might go look back at these lists that they haven't played in a couple years and think, actually, that's good again now.
Yeah. So you would say you're mostly salty about the fact that FFG said, "Hey, surprise, Kylo exists and Kylo Ren's existence."
Yeah, because I was working under the impression that they wouldn't be, and then the organizer of the regionals kind of confirmed it because he thought the same thing I did, but they actually called FFG, and FFG confirmed that it's not a premier event, and therefore it has to be legal. So I'm not necessarily concerned with Kylo Ren being like super overpowered. I'm just my main complaint is I wish I could have practiced more against it.
Yeah. Nick, do you have anything you're salty about?
That's almost a funny question, considering I got handed a whole bunch of weapons. So I can kind of talk about the inverse. Pat talked about something when we were playing in person about the saltiness, and I think I completely agreed, is ships that have 1 or 2 agility are being just outgunned, straight up outgunned. The new idea of rolling 6 or 7 attack die don't even give the big ships a chance to fire. Being an Imperial guy since day one, I know what the feeling is to have 3 hull and move forward, take a barrel roll action. It's not modified or anything, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, where did that ship go? What's going on? And I feel like now larger ships and more ships are going to be one shot. That's in general not a good feeling. And so I agree with Pat where I'm more salty about the idea of these ships are going to start just evaporating with more target locked dice rolling at their face.
Yeah, I think there's what you're seeing over the last couple waves, including this one with like things like Swarm Leader, is it's a lot more easier to roll 5, 6, or even 7 dice, and it's not it's across the board. You've got things like Fen, you've got things like Swarm Leader, but even Miranda, she can drop that shield to throw a 5 dice homing missile attack. And there's lots, Kylo Ren is a 4 dice native attack. Pure Sabak, can roll 4 dice as long as his ability is active. And so you will, unless we get sort of a lightweight frame, but for these, 1 agility ships, like I'm thinking specifically of ships like B-Wings and Y-Wings, I'm a little bit worried that the attack power curve will kind of make them obsolete, which, I love Y-Wings and B-Wings. I love the ships from the original films. And I'm just a little bit worried that you'd be wasting the points on these ships. Because, like you said, a lot of these ships are taking generics too, so they're pilot skill 2 ships, or maybe even pilot skill 4. If these are the ships you're taking, they can conceivably be off the board. Before they shoot. An example with Nate's build is, with your 2 pilot skill 9, Fen and Cobra, it's not very difficult to get in range 1 of a Y-Wing. They don't go very fast. Their 3 banks are red. You know what I mean? Like, if you turn slightly, you're stressing the ship out. So, it's not hard at all to keep these ships in arc for things like Squad Leader, Swarm Leader? Swarm Leader, for Fen Rao, for Miranda's homing missile attacks, etc. My main concern would be that I want to keep seeing these ships on the table, because that's why I started the game. I wanted to fly these original trilogy ships, A-Wings, B-Wings, Y-Wings, X-Wings, stuff like that. So I hope that doesn't go away with their with their focus on the new movies. I hope they don't forget about these older ships. And just kind of let them sink behind.
I gotta say, I'm the opposite on that. I think a lot of the original ships of Star Wars look stupid. Like the X-Wing is the only one that I really think looks cool, and I would want to fly it. But like A-Wing, Y-Wing, TIE Fighter, dear God, the fucking TIE Fighter they're just dumb. They just look so stupid. And like,
the design doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And like that's kind of why I got into the game in the first place as Scum, is because I saw these ships and I'm like, these are dumb, and then I saw the Kuraz and I'm like, it's like a real ship, it's like a real boy. I can fly it around like a Harrier jet and be awesome. Yeah.
Nate, I have one thing to say to that though.
Yes.
Can your Karaz, while flying through space, can it make this noise? That's all.
Noise in
That's a fair
space.
point.
Noise in space, Nick.
It's science. It happens.
Yes.
Science rules.
We need to be quiet about this. Nick has officially won the argument. Congratulations.
Okay, you win.
It's just science in space. No, I not to derail, but I do like the concept of, it was modeled after World War II fighters, and that whole concept. That's what I really love about the Rebel and Imperial fighters. But that's about it. They're science rules, and the movie would be very boring, just silence.
I mean, yeah. Now, I would say what I'm salty about is nothing right now. I'm very watered down, and the salt has just absorbed into me, and now I'm just a delicious sports drink, and I'm okay with this. Like, I think the game's in a good state right now. There's a lot of things going back and forth, and Imperials needed something like Kylo Ren, and the fact that they're exploiting a new mechanic with the damage deck and conditions gets me excited. And like, another reason why I'm not really salty about anything because I'm just better than you guys. I mean, it's that simple. No, it's because like I came from Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic and all that, and game state changing drastically is something I'm very used to. In all these other games, like every couple sets, there's all these different mechanics. Like, I don't know if anyone who's listening has ever played Yu-Gi-Oh! The game is so incredibly different from the first set that you can barely even recognize it as the same game anymore. And I'm totally okay with that. I think it's cool. It's like a natural evolution of the game. Because if it stayed where it was and just kept expanding, it would get really boring, and numbers would just get higher, I guess. Like, that's all. But I love thinking about things from a different angle and attacking it from a different angle. So I'm salty at you guys for being salty, I guess. Get over it.
I'm salty at Scum for having so many good builds.
I mean, that might be why I'm not salty, is because Scum is amazing, but...
Yeah, when there's like 5 completely different meta builds, you're like, wait a minute. Hold on.
I remember looking over at Rebels and being like, oh, that's a really good ship. I wonder if it can fly. Why is everything so expensive?
Yeah.
I will say that Rebels don't have a go-to meta build like Defenders or Mind Link builds or Dangaroo, but I will say I do like the idea of a faction, Rebels in this case, which doesn't have a clear meta build. I think, for me personally, Miranda is the best Rebel ship in the game, but aside from that, really there's lots of room to kind of explore and experiment with the squad. So despite, the idea that I have to build against certain medalists, and I'm not too salty about it. But I do think I really do think that Rebels are going to get something soon. I think that Heroes of the Resistance was not the final fix. I think we'll get something like Rebel Veterans or something with Scarif ships. So maybe like a Y-wing or an X-wing update or something like that that will put X-wings back on the table. I'm predicting it now. It's coming soon.
I mean, the game is called X-wing. I would really hope that X-wings were highly played.
Right.
Yeah. I've actually heard a lot of people complaining about like the fact that you don't recognize the game anymore. Like, you don't walk up to a table and go, "Oh man, that's an A-wing or that's a B-wing versus a TIE fighter or whatever." And like, I don't agree with what they're saying because of what I stated earlier. See, like 10 minutes ago, but they have a valid point. That's very like.
Yeah. I don't necessarily agree with it but I've read all of the Legends material, I've played all of the games, so like I know a lot of the ships, even the ones that haven't been in the movies. but I can understand it from a point of if someone wants to get into this game and they've only seen Star Wars, the main movies,
Yeah.
are they going to walk up to an X-Wing table and be like, oh, cool, I get to fly the ships that fought the Death Star or, fought over Endor, I do think there's something to be said for that, and that, having these ships on the table, when someone walks by, will turn their heads towards it if they're even a casual Star Wars fan. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're coming close to the end of our time here. So I wanted to make sure to cover our last section, Stay on Target. And this is where we talk about take two. So this is where we talk about little tips and whatnot to keep your head in the game, or just tips in general for the game, things you might not have noticed, kind of tips.
Yep, I got a tip.
Just a tip.
Yeah. So, if you don't mind, I'll start this off, guys.
Do it.
Kind of based off, Imperial's getting a lot of new possibilities. I'll just say it that way, with a lot of pilots upgrade cards, ships, everything. I will say, to take off what I said 2 weeks ago, is just practice. Is nothing is more valuable than getting out there and being like, I'm going to fly this ship and make sure it doesn't cross over this asteroid, or I'm going to fly the ship and make sure he's within an arc, or I need that guy to be within range 1, so I'm going to try to maneuver him in. And I think Pat even told me a long time ago, is just, even if it's just yourself, to just line it up, throw down some asteroids, any random place, and just try to move around. And I will say, especially with the Epsilon, it is not a Lambda, thank God, so he can actually maneuver, but it still only has that 2 sharp. So see the Ghost, see the Houndstooth. It's going to be a little tricky to maneuver considering there's a lot of arc dodgers out there. So practice makes perfect. Again,
Nick decides to tell you to play with yourself.
Or others, just as long as it's not what you.
He's showing us the dark side, Nate.
Yeah.
Turn around and grab your knees, and I'll show you the dark side.
Kylo runs a punk ass bitch.
It's true. It's a fact.
So Pat,
it's space science.
Pat, did you have any stay on target tips?
Yeah, so I kind of referenced it earlier when I was talking about Lebo and Chewbacca as kind of a counter if Kylo Ren becomes big in the meta. And that is to look at the old ships, old cards, especially if you don't use them or haven't used them on a regular basis. Look at them again in new, fresh builds with new ships and see what they can do. Don't be afraid to test out some cards that maybe weren't viable before, but now with certain combinations are viable. Obviously, like you said, Determination is specifically a hard counter to Kylo Ren. But things like, Rage, the card Rage, which is an EPT, and it's only 1 point, but the drawbacks of that were you got 2 stress. Now with the Inspiring Recruit card, where you can remove 2 stress, all of a sudden, that becomes a lot more viable on certain builds. Even if Chewbacca, he's 42 points in the Millennium Falcon, you give him Rage, you give him Inspiring Recruit and C-3PO. I mean, that's under 50 points for, a primary weapon turret that gets a focus and an evade, possibly from C-3PO, and 3 rerolls per attack. So, going back and looking at these old combos of cards and whether they're being improved by the new material that's coming out, is something that I like to do on a regular basis. Honestly, most of the time it doesn't work, or maybe it's just okay for a casual game. But I know anytime there's a new card come out, I'm always trying to make it work with some of the older pilots maybe that aren't in use, like Wedge Antilles, pilot skill 9, great ability, but dies very easily and is kind of expensive when you when you kind of put all of the the upgrades on him. So just going back and trying to get as many cheap upgrades on him as possible, try and keep him under a third of a list, like something like that, is fun for me. And I think you'll get better at understanding the game if you're using these cards, as opposed to always slapping the same like EPTs on the same ships. Right? There's 20, 30 maybe EPTs cards in the game, maybe a little less than that, but most people, the ones that you've heard of and are used on a regular basis, they're the same ones. They're Push the Limit, they're Veteran Instincts, they're things like this where they're almost universally useful, so people automatically just put these on the ships and don't think about maybe other combinations. So that's my tip. Experiment with older cards when a new set comes out. Just spend some time in the Squadron Builder and see if you can make something that's unique and that people won't expect to see.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. I get in my ruts of put a tiny mind link on everything, and I mean it's good, but there's other things like Push the Limit. Yeah. I would say for my stay on target tip of the week, by week, whatever, is play the jump masters or the quad jumpers. You fly some quad jumpers. I say this because I did not when I flew them for the first time, I did not expect them to feel the way they did. They're not nearly as fast as I was hoping for them to be, but I discovered how much of a huge difference flying backwards is. And if I've learned anything from FFG, I would say that they do not ever release a mechanic by itself. The fact that these ships fly backwards means to me that they're eventually going to release another ship that flies backwards faster or flies backwards better. It's a mechanic that they're releasing now, and I am sure that they're going to be using it again. And you're going to see it. Like, it's so unexpected to see a ship fly backwards. It's the weirdest thing. In the game that I played, I had the Houndstooth and 3 quad jumpers. And my first turn, I did a 2 forward with each one of them. And then my next turn, I did a 1 backwards with each one of them. And my Houndstooth just stopped. So that bought me like an extra turn to force Nick to fly through the asteroids. So that kind of felt good, and buying that extra turn makes a huge difference. And flying backwards is a thing that I know is going to happen. And everyone should buy more scum ships.
Would you say they should buy 10 quad jumpers?
10. No less than 10.
So your beginner's tip is spend more money.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a game tip, is to spend more money, because you just want to buy.
I'll show you the retail side.
Well, Nate, for my birthday, my sister did just get me the Scum Most Wanted pack, so now I have my first Scum ships. So if welcome. I, show up to the regionals next week with every single Scum ship, you know what happened.
Thanks, Pat.
Yep, no problem.
Well, thanks everyone for joining. This has been the 585 Squadron podcast, where we remind you to fly silly. This has been Nate. I fly Scum.
Nick, I fly Imperials.
And Pat, I don't know what I'm flying, but we'll figure it out.
One day. All right, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Hey, everyone. This is Pat. Again, just real quick, I want to let everyone know if they do have any questions or comments or something they want us to discuss on the podcast, you can shoot us an email at 585squadron@gmail.com. Or you can go ahead and go on Facebook and search for the 585 Squadron podcast group. We already have some really cool discussions going on, especially around Kylo and people's thoughts on him. So feel free to join us there or shoot us an email if you want to join in the discussion.
Thanks, Pat.
We're passing through the magnetic field.